So I guess to begin, you can go ahead and start and give your position on things, and then I can give mine, and we'll just go through the back and forth.
Would you like this to be timed?
Yeah,
Mine's maybe going to be maybe a minute. I mean, we
All
can
right,
do.
yeah, no problem. We don't
I'd
got to
rather we
time it.
just
He
keep
said
it a
no.
little more free form.
Cool. Go ahead.
Okay. So, my argument is for feminism to work, they have to have an enforcement law in order to enforce any and every law that they want. Just like back in the early 1800s, you didn't have women owning property because they couldn't defend it. So, if we knew for all these thousands of years that men were going to be enforcing everything, it only makes sense. But when it comes down to where, excuse me, where they get their beginnings from in the beginning stages of first wave feminism, sure, they only wanted to have access to equal rights. After that, it kind of went a little overboard into second and third wave, which is where they're at now. But basically, my whole argument just comes down to if you can't enforce your laws, you can't have laws. So,
Okay. So on my end, I will say that from my perspective, the at least definition, the concept of feminism in my mind is the idea of a purely egalitarian state where there is no demographic that is necessarily a ruling class over another. At least when it comes to the genders, it is a complete equal sense of authority, level of rights, what have you. And I personally believe that this idea of force doctrine only exists because of the outdated um, patriarchal state. And that if you were to remove the patriarchy and what remnants of it still exist in today's society, you would be able to remove this entire idea of force doctrine because such a concept would be null and void thereafter.
okay, is that
Yeah, go for it.
okay? So, how can you enforce anything then if you don't believe in the force doctrine?
So I think obviously enforcement is a key part of any kind of society, government, what have you. However, I believe in today's modern society that enforcement is not determined based upon um, the physical strength of its people, right? Like, yes, obviously, throughout history, over however many thousands of years, men have had to be the ones to enact enforcement because they did have the physical strength. However, I think we can both agree that in modern society, the strength of something like a military is not dependent on the actual physical capability of its soldiers, but rather the intelligence of those who are in charge of said military, of those who are like even those who are on the front lines. It's a much more intelligence based system rather than brute strength. And so I think if you were to look at the hypothetical of if we took today's modern world and completely stripped away all notions of society, government, and everything, all of that completely reset, right? And we were able to just start anew, but we kept all of our modern technology, weaponry, all of our knowledge, everything, and just started from scratch, I don't think that such a forced doctrine idea would exist, because women would, on that scale, be able to compete equally with men, because it would be based on intelligence rather than physical prowess.
Okay, but if we were to do like you said and start all new, um, who's going to build everything?
Um, Again, I think that is certainly, um again, like I'm saying, I'm saying, like, not necessarily like a completely new, um how do I put it, civilization, right? Like, purely if we were to take away all previous notions of, like, structures of power and government, and all of those things were just left up to the people today, completely starting from scratch, I don't think that those new societies would look as male, nearly as male dominated as ours is currently today.
It would basically be exactly the same because um, the men are the ones that have the strength to do anything, and um, not saying that I do this stuff. There are other people that do this stuff, um, but when you look at where women are in fields, they're not in um, things like they're not building roads. They're not, working construction. There might be a few here and there, um, but for the most part, it's males because they have the strength. We have a temperament where we can withstand different temperatures. Women don't have quite as significant of temperature regulation as men do. And then even when it comes to things like electronics and stuff, men are the engineers on that as well. Women are going into fields such as teaching, psychology, and business. None of that would further our civilization.
Sure, I don't necessarily disagree with any of that, right? Like, obviously, it's a given that the different genders are inclined to different roles in society. But what I don't see is that how that in any way supports the idea that, um I assume you also prescribe to the idea that, like, women only have rights in our society because of this idea of forced doctrine, because men allow women to exist the way that they do in our society, right? I don't think the fact that people tend towards different kinds of work, I don't see how that lends to the idea that we can't have an egalitarian state.
Because you're still, no matter what, appealing to men to enforce the rules that you're going to want.
Okay, so let's go with this, right? Let's say we have people who are advocating for an increase of civil liberties and civil rights for children, people under 18, right? And then you have someone who says, well, um, okay, excuse me, to go further, some of these specific liberties and rights are, like, to protect from abuse of parents and adults, right? So then
Okay.
you have another person who says, but don't they need those adults and those parents to be able to allow for those rights to be had? Sure, but does that mean that we should not be trying to guarantee those rights?
That's a hard one because underage, I don't really. So you're saying under 18 that they don't have to deal with their parents?
Well, basically, it's just the idea that, like, just because a certain group of people might be, um, to put it this way, like, at the mercy of another group, and that they only have certain protections or rights allowed by that other group, does that not does that then mean that we shouldn't be trying to give those people the rights?
Um, you know, in that case, I would say no. Kids shouldn't have the right to do whatever they want. It's their parents are the ones raising them. So no, they shouldn't have the free rights to do whatever they want.
Well, that's not necessarily the idea, right? Like the concept with feminism and the egalitarian mindset is that we are purely trying to make it equal, right? Where the the male portion of society isn't impacting women in a negative way in, say, the workforce or socially, what have you, right? And so it's just about negating harms that would exist. So in the analogy of the children's rights, it's the idea of, like, if we were to try and protect them from abusive parents or abusive adults, right? To try and negate some harm that is currently happening. Do you not believe that we should, even though that those children are at the whim of um adults, just like how you say women are at the whim of men, um do you not believe that we should still be trying to guarantee those rights because they deserve to not be abused in that way?
So okay, now I see what you're saying. Um, uh, when it comes to that, in both situations, you are still men are going to appeal to men for force, and women are always going to appeal to men for force. So either way, men are enforcing everything. So even if you want to, say give rights to children, it's still backed up by force of something or someone, which is always going to be the stronger of the two.
Okay, so even if I were to grant this idea to you, right? Like, what does this mean for the real world? How does this impact the world? Like, how should the world change in accordance with this idea?
Well, we should. Um, I, you know, I don't think that everybody should have the right to vote at all. So that's, you know,
Awesome. We're getting into the voting. So, what would a better voting system look like in your mind?
people that have stake in the game. Um, you
How
know,
would you define stake in the country?
if you want to, donate 3, 4 years of your time to the military, um,
Mhm.
you go say work for the government somehow where you are giving to the country, you're not receiving anything, then sure, you should have the right to vote because you are the
Sure.
one that's doing
Awesome.
everything.
So, um, every um, legal adult in the United States is required to pay taxes. No?
Basically, yeah.
Awesome. So they are required to invest their own money, their own property into the country, into the government, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that then not a perfect example of, like, what would mean having a stake in the company?
No, because you're paying to be protected.
Yeah, that's having a stake in our government, is it not?
No, no, that's not the same thing.
Um,
Paying for protection and being the protector are two different things.
So I really don't think so, right? Like I feel like if you live in this country and you contribute to it, right? You have a reason to want it to continue and to do well, right? Like if I'm on a boat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do nothing to contribute to the boat staying afloat, right? That doesn't mean I don't have a stake in that boat staying above water, right? Like I have a tremendous um obligation to want to keep that boat afloat even if I'm not actually contributing to it, right? All American citizens are on that boat even if not all of us are rowing it. So like the idea that you have to have stake in some way, we all have a stake in that game because because we live here. We have a reason to want to um, change our system as we see fit.
Okay, so in that case, if we're all in the same boat and everything, so why should me, somebody who, I'm not in the military, I'm not a cop, I'm not in the government, why should I be allowed to vote for something that affects their lives?
Because it also affects yours,
No,
right?
it
Like it
doesn't.
affects
Not
the
if I
country as
not
a
if
whole.
I vote on something that only dictates their portion of what they do.
Um, well, that's the thing, right? We have the obligation to um be voting and to change our government as a whole for the sake of bettering the country how we see it should be, right? And like unfortunately, like I'm not big into the military, right? I believe like the entire concept is you are selling your life to be a part of the government, right? Like you are now a government entity. So at that point, yeah, you are you're still just voting to affect how our government is doing things, right? And the fact that it affects certain lives doesn't necessarily matter because number one, those people also have the ability to vote, right? Like their voice is also being heard. And additionally, they chose to be in that position, right?
Hmm.
There's nobody forcing them to. If they want to get out, they can try and opt out however they can or make sure that they don't go in the military to begin with. But because they chose to, there's no reason that we should stop people like you or I from voting and making decisions that could affect them because they chose to be there. They should know the consequences.
Yeah, that's that's along the same lines of when Obama said that the military should provide their own insurance because they knew what they signed up for. That that still doesn't make sense. So both of those don't make sense because if I am going to affect the way that somebody does their job or the way that they have to protect the country, then you shouldn't have that option to make it so that another person has to go and do something on your behalf um, that would in this hypothetical what I'm meaning is like if uh, you vote on something where a police force has to do a certain thing in order to um, pass a test or in order to continue being a police force. I shouldn't have any dictation over that whatsoever.
Well, that's the thing. Like our system doesn't really work like you do have a say in that, right? Like those kinds of decisions are I'm pretty sure always left up to like the actual bureaucracy of whatever state city that happens to be, right? Like
But
when
has
we
it
vote,
always
we
been
are
that way?
voting. Um, I mean, maybe not. Sure. I mean, I'm sure back when the country was still in its infancy, things were much more localized to the point where you might have elections and voting for much smaller scale things like that.
Do you know
But
when?
nowadays, that's just not the case.
Do you know when all men, not including women, but do you know when men, all of us collectively, got the right to vote?
That would have been with I believe the 15th Amendment, just after slavery was abolished.
Yes. So literally, men got the right to vote maybe 10 to 15 years before the women's suffrage. And I think that allowing all men to vote was a terrible idea. We should have kept it the way the founders wanted it.
White men.
No, I mean as far. Okay, hold on. I don't mean we should have kept, all the craziness from the
Sure.
beginning. Okay, all I mean is the who had the right to vote. That's the only portion that I'm talking about.
Mhm.
I don't
Right.
mean I don't mean
Um,
slavery and all that, because that was obviously terrible,
sure, of course.
and so
Um, I think I don't know. I feel like the concept of someone who has a stake in the country being the only people who can vote is is strange to me, right? Because like again, I feel like that's such a ambiguous term as to like what counts as truly having a stake in the country other than being a member of it. I feel like that gets so wishy-washy in like being able to define. I just don't think it's a viable option.
okay, so
And
let me
additionally,
ask you
I don't think go ahead.
no, I'm sorry.
I don't think that there's any reason we shouldn't allow all people to have a say. I just don't think that like we are each our own individual person. There's no reason we all shouldn't individually get a vote for our own ideas.
Okay, so do you know how to take down a missile weapon system?
Not a clue.
Okay, so should you be able to have a vote to dictate to another person that's actually doing that job, that knows how to do it, how they should do it? Or do you think the person doing it should dictate how it gets done?
Again, like these aren't the kinds of things that we get a vote on, right? Like obviously, of course it works in a way where someone who actually knows how these things are done in like a company or in the bureaucracy of the military, things like that, right? That the people who actually like the higher ups who have like been there done that, they're a leader for a reason. They make those decisions. Us voters, we don't make those decisions. We make decisions on who exactly is chosen to lead the country. We decide what lawmakers are put in that position,
Yeah,
but
I
in no way are
agree.
we making those more finite details. So like do you think that we should just like if you were to not have anything to do with like let's say you completely are um absent of having any kind of involvement with the military in any way, right? Should you not be allowed to vote for electing a congressperson who is eventually going to vote on legislation that has to do with the military?
And that's my point right there. You just made my point for me. Is that when it's not like I'm going to vote on a bill that's going to come across that's going to say, hey, they have to do this. But when you elect legislatures, that's when things start to change. And by us voting legislatures in, obviously they have their own agendas as well. So when they start making laws, then that's why we shouldn't. If I don't have a stake in it, I shouldn't be allowed to vote.
I still think, like, when it comes down to it, I think this mostly comes down to the idea of what does it mean to have a stake in the government, right? Or in the country, really. So, I guess, can you tell me again what you believe those, like, criteria should be?
Um, it should be only down to, I would say, people that are, donate their time to the military, to um, police department, your local officials, um, to, obviously, if you're going to run, be in Senate, Congress, President, things like that. Obviously, they should have votes. But other than that, I don't think I wouldn't even agree with landowners because, I mean, some landowners could be, you know, completely stupid. So,
Hmm.
but I would want um, only people that are contributing to the society that we want to take part in. And I don't mean your
Are in
local
your
grocery store guy.
I mean, sure, you can say that, but, like, are they not also contributing to our society, right? Like, they pay who knows how many taxes, from owning that store, all of the sales tax that go into everything that's bought there, right? Like, there's a significant part of that that is, like, they are absolutely contributing a ton to our government and our society, right? Like, without these things, we would go into chaos. We need these things to um work in tandem with one another for the sake of things running smoothly. So to say that only the people who are um a part of, like, the enforcement arm of the government, and um like, only those kinds of people and those at the top are really the only ones that, like, have a stake in the country succeeding, I don't think is true at all, right? Like, I don't think those people should be making decisions for the other 330 million people that are here.
Why not? Um, but before you answer that, the people that are paying taxes, they're all you're doing is paying for protection.
Hello?
Yeah.
What do you
Hey,
mean by paying for protection? In what sense?
You're paying for the military to protect you. You're paying for the government to protect you, and then you're paying for your local law enforcement to protect you.
You're also paying for education, your roads, agriculture, like everything else that the government does. It's not all just the military and your executive and your enforcement branches. Things that are much more local, and things that are much more, um, that have far less separation, degrees of separation to the individual.
Sure. In that case, I would be okay with localized voting, just not on the federal level. I'd be okay with you going ahead and voting for, what kind of crops you want to grow and, who's going to, be in charge as city mayor. But once you get
So
above out of that situation, then no, you don't have a say on what the rest of it does.
okay, let's go through a like example here, right? Let's make this a hypothetical. Let's say this system that you prescribe goes into place, right? And it's the vast majority of people who are actually voting on national decisions in the United States are people who are in the military. Um, and you admitted yourself that you wouldn't necessarily be a part of this group, which is fine. But let's say that this group decides that in a national election, um, and through their voting, right, they have decided they want to vote on um, taxes being increased for by like a gazillion percent for everybody, right? Except for them. And they voted on this, they decided it. This is in law now. Do you think that's fine because they're the only true stakeholders in the company or in the government?
In that situation, um, I mean, that already happens, anyways, by people that are in power voting that stuff in, anyways. So I don't see what the difference would be.
People that we had the ability to vote in though. We still had a say in who got elected.
Yeah. And my whole argument is unless you've donated your time and effort to something to be a part of this country, then why do you? What makes you think that you're going to know better than the guys that actually did do their part and know what's going on? What? Why would your opinion matter to them?
What exactly does some 18-year-old who couldn't who couldn't graduate high school and decided his only option was to go and enlist in the army and is some frontline infantryman, right? Barely passed his ASVAB, right? Like is is barely able to get by just by going to the military, right? What exactly does he know more on than the average US citizen?
Well, I think you're not understanding. He wouldn't be allowed to vote yet. You got to give your time first.
Sure, even let's say he's been in there for some 5 years, right? Again, what does he actually know about the country, right? The decision making of government, of law, right? Not just like being out on the front lines and doing military work, right? Like these things are very disconnected from one another.
Hmm.
Again, even at just 5 years of being there, what does he know more on than the average citizen does?
Well, he's going to know a lot more. He's going to know basically our history, United States history. He'll know. He'll know war formations. He'll know strategically things about war and keeping the country safe. And then once he gets out, say he gets out and he wants to vote for whatever he wants to vote on. I think that he's going to have a little bit more information than you and me.
How do any of those things help that person be a better decision maker when it comes to national policy? That could be about anything.
Well, because like I said, he's going to learn our history for one.
Well,
Um,
I don't think necessarily like at all is a guarantee from joining the military, right? Like I don't last I checked that's not a required like part of boot camp is you sit in a classroom for a few hours a day
yeah, that's
read
exactly how
on
boot
your
camp
American
goes.
history.
During boot camp, you have hours that you have to spend in a classroom. You learn different things. You learn about the founding of the country. You learn about the different wars that the country's been in. You learn a lot.
again, I don't think it's going to be anything greater than what the typical person knows just as a citizen, right? Like,
I think it would be a lot more if because right now you have people that aren't even high school graduates that are voting, and yet this guy is going to go through the military and he's actually going to get an education. So I think he should be the one voting versus the uneducated.
but again, right? Like, if we want to really look at the the real truth of it, right? A lot of the people in the military go into it because they don't have a lot of other options, right? They don't go into it just because they're patriotic for their country. Obviously, those people exist, but the vast majority, I think, go into the military just because they were barely able to go through high school if they did at all. They aren't going to any kind of college. They don't have a lot of other opportunities, so they go into the military so they at least get some guaranteed food and shelter, right?
Yeah,
So
see, and that's the part of the hypothetical you're not figuring out is they're not paid to be there. You're donating your time.
awesome. Like, that's cool and they can do that. But again, I don't see how this makes them uh better decision makers for national policy.
Because
I
just like
think
you said,
like
the person that's looking for the benefit out of it being monetary isn't going to be there.
I don't see how that's a problem.
It's a huge problem when all you're doing is just looking at what's going to benefit you versus how am I going to benefit them. It's a totally different mindset.
So you're saying that all military personnel have the kind of mindset of like they are purely doing this for the good of the country, and that all of their actions that they make are for the betterment of the entire whole of the United States.
Now this was from my hypothetical. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm not talking about the people that are in there now. I'm talking about if this was to happen this way, um, those people aren't going to be the same ones. Well, I mean, there's going to be a lot of the same ones that are in there now, but there's going to be a whole bunch that wouldn't be there because they're looking, for that paycheck. They're looking for things like that. But when a guy is going in there with the mindset of I want to um, make my country benefit from me, so that I have a say in what happens, you're going to have a little bit different mindset than what your normal people have now.
I think I really just like I don't, again, I still don't think that this really has an impact on how much they actually know about the country, right? And this brings up another point of like you really like you kind of shifted on your idea of what it means to like be a stakeholder, right? Like you're not necessarily even talking about being a stakeholder anymore. You're talking about having an informed vote on like actually knowing how the government works and what's needed, right? So which is it?
So, do you think the
Or is it both?
military? Do you think the military people are all stupid?
No,
Do
not at
you
all.
think that the military members are all are slurred? They can't read a book or something?
Not one bit.
Okay, so why do you keep talking down to the military like they're so stupid that they don't know anything? When
I
when
don't at
you're
all.
in
The
when,
thing,
when when you're
I
in the
think they are
military,
just like
you
the
get
rest
an
of us.
education. You get two different types of education. You get actual knowledge education, and then you also get your regular military education, which is how things should work and the way they should work. So you're getting great bit of information while you're in the military. Plus, they also, a lot of the guys go to college while they're in there, um, and so they're definitely not ill informed. They're highly educated, most of them.
Also, listen, I think I'm gonna have to challenge you on this idea because from absolutely everything that I'm looking at, I can't find anything that actually says that they go in depth on like the kinds of on information about like actual US history as a whole of government and everything. It seems to me that the vast majority of education that they do in things like boot camp and other military training is more specifically about the history of like the military and learning about different tactics and history and operations and things like that, but not necessarily anything about how the government works, right? Because I mean,
So, do you think that
if you want to
guys
think
go
about it
to boot
realistically, they
camp?
don't need that.
Do you think guys go to boot camp and that's all the training they get?
Um, for some of them, yeah, but
No, no.
not to say that it's
You're going
all.
to go off to a school that's going to specialize in what your job is.
Right, where you're going to learn about that job. They're not going to they're not going to waste their time, their money, and their effort to teach you about um like ethics and government and things like that, right? Like that would be
Oh,
pretty pointless if I'll be honest. I don't think that's happening, and it doesn't. From all the research that I'm looking at, it
how
doesn't
many
look like it
jobs do you
is.
think there are in the military? Do you think there's only fighting?
Plenty of them, but none of them necessarily have to do with the government itself, besides those really higher ranking positions.
You're absolutely right. Not one individual does, but all of them collectively do. So
Sure, but they don't act
if you
as
have,
a collective.
sure they
They
do.
they
If
don't
they
vote
all
as
go
a
into the
collective.
military, they all go off to their, schools, they get their educations, and then they get out of the military, and they're the ones that are doing the voting. They've gotten an education from many different areas. So, yeah, one guy might be voting for one certain thing, but there's, however many of them there are that have gone through the same thing that are all voting. So,
You're just describing our current state of voting, how it usually works, but just within people in the military, right? Like it's the same thing. I think the idea that like just because they've been in the military means they know more means that, like only people in the military should be able to vote, right?
well, I
Like
didn't say it was just the
what about
military either, though, did I?
well, sure, but even if you're let's say you have someone who is incredibly intelligent and knows a vast amount of things about our government and is a very well educated individual, but doesn't fit any of your criteria, doesn't fall any under any of those, right? He can't vote just because he doesn't fall under any of your arbitrary um uh, criteria, right?
Yeah, just like
So
I would.
why should that be allowed?
It should be allowed because, I mean, even if somebody is book educated, doesn't mean that they actually know what they're doing or what they're voting on. There's many different facets of things, and if you have somebody,
And how does someone who has worked in like civil service or in the military, how do those people know more?
well, you're going to have multiple different ways because, like I said, I don't know why you don't understand this. People in the military still get an education. So I would much rather
Sure, but
have
educated
somebody.
on the things that they are being trained to do in the military.
Hmm.
That's what they're being educated on, not anything else.
Really? Nothing else.
Yes.
They're not trained on anything else. They don't get an education in anything else other than their job.
Um, unless like no, I don't think so. Not unless they like choose to go and like go to college or anything like that while they're in the military, which is a pretty smart thing to do, honestly. Um, but no, I really don't think they're being educated much on anything besides their position in the military and like how to do that and what the history of that position is.
Um, do you know what Annapolis is?
I can't say I'm familiar.
Yeah, it's the Naval Academy where they train officers and things like that. They get a very, very intense education for 4 years. And there's also a military version of Annapolis. There's a Air Force version of Annapolis that's in Colorado. Um, so I'm pretty sure they're getting trained on other things other than just their job.
I
Did you not know that there were military colleges that the
No,
military
of
went to?
course these things exist, but like I
So
really
what do you
don't
think they
think
teach
that like
them there? How to
you
pull a pin on a grenade and that's it?
of course not, but I really don't think they're being um I don't think they're being any more educated on how our government works than a high schooler is in their high school government class,
Oh,
which
come
by the
on.
way
Come
is
on,
is
dude. You
being is
really
being
can't take
more
that
and more
stance.
required,
Do
right?
you
Like
think
I
you
live
think
in I live
military
in Kansas,
members don't
right?
have any more knowledge than a high schooler when it comes to government politics?
Um maybe to a degree when it comes to more about the executive branch and the military and the enforcement arm of things, but I don't think it's to any large degree to the point where we should say they know far more than the average person, to the point where only they should decide how the country is run.
Okay, so first thing is all military members are going to know how to follow chain of command, which is the exact same thing that all of government does. So
So what?
so
So do most people working in the United States.
they all follow chain of command
Yeah, usually you have your
to a T.
supervisors
To a
and then your
T.
managers and then your CEOs, right? Like there's absolutely bureaucracy in a lot of corporate and even non-corporate America.
Okay, let's take a really, really just one example. How about how what happened to Project Veritas? How'd that work out for him?
I'm not exactly educated on uh, anything to do with um, PV. Like it's not something I've really looked into. I know it was something that like was a thing, but I don't really know any
Yeah.
specifics.
Well, he was
So
ousted
sorry,
from
you
his
can't
own
really use that
company.
example. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. When was the
I mean,
when
cool. That can
did?
happen, right?
Oh, yeah, it happens all the
So what?
time, right? The president gets overtaken all the time, right? People just
Gets
go around him, and
yeah, we can impeach them, right? Like we have the ability we can vote them out.
okay. There's been two presidents that have been impeached. You've had Clinton and Trump. How'd that work out? Did either one of them leave office?
I mean,
No, no, neither one of them left office.
number one,
So no,
not
impeachment
even
doesn't
sure.
work.
You can also look at Nixon, right? Like someone who was in the middle of being impeached and resigned to save face,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Like these are things
Was
that
he
like
overthrown?
we have the ability to.
Was he
I
overthrown?
mean, in a sense, yeah. Like technically, that's what our entire country is based upon, is the idea that we have the ability to overthrow, quote unquote, our leaders without having to make it violent, right? By being able to impeach or being able to vote somebody else.
Well, James O'Keefe wasn't taken out violently either. He was voted out. Um,
Then what's the problem with that?
if they were following the chain of command, that never would have happened.
Um, Not necessarily, right? Like if you close the door. 1 second, I apologize.
Oh, no worries, you're good. Hopefully, we get this over here pretty soon. Um, we'll see. I know it hasn't been the greatest debate, but I'll try to do a little bit better.
All right, sorry about the wait on that. Where were we?
Um, let's see, something about voting. I know. Let's. How about we do this? How about if I just concede to you? Let's let people vote and come back to feminism.
Sure. Yeah, I think we should totally get back onto that. That
Yeah,
sounds like a
for
good idea.
yes, I'll just concede to you that we should just let people vote. So okay, so as far as feminism goes, with letting them vote, the only reason that I would say um, the problem with letting women vote then is
Mhm.
that they are going to be able to send men off to war via the draft.
Sure. Um, that's definitely something I would 100% concede to you. I personally also believe that women should have to sign up for the draft at this point. Um, yeah, I really don't see how there's any reason they shouldn't. I think if we do want an egalitarian state, that is something that should happen. And I would almost argue that that additionally is also a remnant of patriarchal society. The idea that men are the ones that need to go out to war and protect our women, right? Like, I think that also is something that comes from patriarchy and is just another thing that we as a society need to move past as a concept.
I don't know if it exactly comes from patriarchy. Wouldn't that come from like natural selection that men are stronger?
Um, I mean, sure. I think like I'll absolutely admit that like the patriarchal society in our species 100% comes just from how naturally we are as creatures, right? But uh, my point is that in today's world, those kinds of things just don't matter like they did in Neolithic times, right? Like we're able now to move past those outdated ideas and turn to a society that is much more equal in that sense and leaves behind those remnants of patriarchy.
Okay, so with your system of everything being equal, and sorry, I'm getting a phone call. I apologize.
You're
Hang
all
it
right.
up. But if we're to go with the system that you're prescribing, um, what happens if say you're in trouble and you need to call the police and you need some assistance? Okay, a
Hmm.
man shows up and then a woman shows up. Okay, just
Sure.
going off of averages of what an average man size is versus an average woman size. You're looking, usually about 5'10" for men is about the average.
Mhm.
About 5'4",
Sure. And
5'5" for women.
I can speed this up, right?
Hmm.
Like obviously if you want to look at the average man and the average woman, these things are not equal physically, right? If I need someone in a time of need where I need someone to like lift a boulder off of my legs trapped under it, yeah, you sure as hell know that I am asking for the strongest man there is, right?
Not even that,
But
but what if you're in the middle of a robbery?
um then again, that's the thing, right? Like I think as you uh devolve the situation into being much more like sophisticated, I think like we can even go back to the military, right? Like
No, no, just with
the
that situation.
you can pose the question. Okay, well, I think while in that specific scenario, like I'm in the middle of a robbery, right? And I need someone to come and save me. Yeah, I'll probably in general, on average, prefer generic man over generic woman, right? Barring any kind of specifications. But I think when you look at things on a broader picture, right?
Hmm.
Like we can go back to the military. Like I think it's a very good question of is it more important, is it more integral to having a good military that you have um the strongest possible most physically fit and capable soldiers on the ground, or the best like tactician behind the scenes,
Still gonna be
deciding
men.
how they operate. I think it um I think with IQ that's probably another one of those things where women are more so in the middle ground of things, um on the bell curve of IQ probably. But I think even when it comes to that, right? Like you have a another thing that is much more inclined to allowing women to be present, right? And nonetheless, I don't think any of this necessarily says that um, it requires that men allow for women to have rights.
So who in that situation you're saying, you know, men on the front, but somebody behind the scenes calling the shots? Who would be better
Mhm.
situated to call the shots? Somebody that's done that before, or somebody that's just read about it?
Definitely someone who's done it for sure.
Okay, so you would want men
Not necessarily. There's plenty of female soldiers that exist. Not
on the
nearly
front
like
line,
50-50, of course,
on the
but
front
they
line where they're going to
absolutely
need
exist.
strategics and stuff like that to complete a mission.
Yes, there are women soldiers. There are women infantrymen.
No, I agree with you that there are women soldiers and there are women
Right.
infantrymen. Do you think the women infantrymen are on the front line?
There are certainly some. 100%.
There might be one or two, but for the most part, no, they're not on the front line because they can't be deployed
Sure,
for a
to a
week
much
at a
lesser
time.
degree. Well, I'm not so sure how of that specific claim. I'm gonna act like you didn't say that.
No,
But
I'll
uh
completely back that up with in the military, you cannot have any medical problem to be on the front line.
awesome, and I don't think that they count your period as a medical problem.
Do you want your females dumping, that stuff in the middle of wherever where somebody could come across it and know that you're there? Or would you rather a man that doesn't have that problem, that doesn't have that situation? And I'm not trying to be
Again,
sexist
I
or
don't think
be an
you're
asshole. I'm
no,
just
no,
saying,
I understand. I think you're just really misguided, unfortunately. I don't think women are going dumping their blood out on the field, right? Like while they're on uh some kind of mission, right? No, at the very least, no less than what any man or woman out there is going to have to piss and shit while they're out on the job, right? Like, so I really don't think that's in any way like a point that can be
I
made.
I think that a better point to be made would be that females are more prone to injury since they're basically like more fragile, I guess you could say, and in the event that an injury does occur, it's going to be more damaging.
Sure, sure. Like on technicality, women are going to be more frail, I guess. Like sure, but again, like this is after they've already gone through rigorous selection of getting the most physically fit women that are there, right? Like because they are on the same level as men.
Well,
no, they're not.
that would actually kind of prove my point, though, right? Because if this is the case after they've already received this training and they're basically on an equal level field, as far as the men, as far as training goes, and we're still seeing that women have a higher rate of injury, well, that indicates that women are less effective out in the field compared to men, as far as like injury rates
Um,
go. Like they're more prone to injury.
Even if I were to concede that idea to you, right? Like you're still saying maybe less efficient, sure, but completely inefficient, no,
No, I
right? Like
wouldn't say completely inefficient. That would be a stretch. But I just
sure,
think that there's just definitely a notable difference.
right, but like if we were in wartime again, right? And we were to by some miracle have an actual draft in the military again, right? Like you're having much less of a selection bias for who you're letting get into those situations, and you're taking from a much larger bunch of people who aren't going to be those most effective individuals. What are we going to say? They can't be in the military because of it?
Okay,
No,
let's.
I just think that we need to be considering this as, I mean, if we're going to be applying standards, well, then we need to be looking at all aspects, right? As along with injury rates. You know what I'm saying? Because if
Mhm.
somebody gets injured, they're not in combat anymore. They are basically no longer effective.
Sure, but I think that's something that like isn't necessarily primarily on that um like fence of gender. Um, I think when it comes to uh, conversations about the different genders and like how the world should work between them, um, I think it's usually a pretty bad idea to purely talk about it in the case of like the averages or the generic, right?
Well, I'm not
Because
really referring to like gender here. I'm referring to sex, right? I'm
well,
referring to
yeah,
like the
my
biological aspect of
apologies.
it. Not like it doesn't matter what they identify as. I don't think that has
Sure.
an effect on their performance.
Right. But that's my thing, right? Is like that purely comes up to something that is just like that's something that's much more decided by the individual person on that individual basis rather than an average, right? Because there are going to be plenty of women who who just have stronger bodies than men, and some of there's going to be men who just aren't as physically capable as other men, right? Or other women. And
Well,
so
that's why I'm saying that we need to look at this as far as like averages, so
right,
that
but
we reduce the noise.
that's the thing. When you get into the military, that selection has already been made, right? You are already getting those high physical tier women and those high physical tier men. They're already here. So those averages for everyone in the gender um isn't necessary anymore. It's not applicable
Well, no,
because
no,
you
because
already have those highest tiers of both.
well, I mean, as I explained earlier, these numbers come after training. So if that was the case, if this was, you know, if training removed all of those disparities, why do we still see them?
Um Again, I
That's
would
basically
have to
what
say,
I'm trying to say.
like, sure. So even if that is the case, right? I don't think that's a case for saying that women primarily need to be barred from being in the military. I think it is much more the case that like I don't think our um like
I just think that there's more roles that they'd be more effective at. I don't think that they should be
sure,
completely
and
barred because
women
I do
are
think that
suited
women
to
definitely serve a
those better
purpose. You
roles,
know,
right? Like I
Yeah,
would
they can be a
almost
secretary.
I would I would definitely put money on the idea, on the fact that women in the military are probably much more likely to be like combat nurses rather than being on
right?
the front lines. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Um, but I think there's no reason that anyone should argue that those who do choose to be on those front lines shouldn't be able to do that because there are hypothetically men who could do it instead.
I do see that argument, but basically the way I look at it is I just look at it as like a safety risk. You know, I want, you know, if somebody's gonna go put their life on the line, I would want them to not only have the least likelihood that they would endanger themselves, but not only we have to consider that if we're allowing women to be a part of like these combat groups, they could also possibly be putting, you know, other people around them in danger.
Sure, but I think our military is effective enough to the point where like small differences in how often certain people in the military have injuries while on duty um, is really like a necessary enough thing to like focus on and say these people shouldn't be able to because of this minuscule difference, and that like I think we're effective enough to the point where even if that is happening, it really doesn't have an effect. And
Well,
therefore, we really shouldn't be trying to deny certain people the ability to live their lives as they feel as would fulfill them um, based upon that.
I see what you're saying, but one of the things that you said is that well this could have like minimal effect, but like you're just like assuming that like that this is like a small discrepancy. We don't know what the number. I mean, I could look up the numbers real quick and we could see like the differences in the injury rates. But besides that, right? I'm not trying to make any like generalizations here, but like, fuck, what was I gonna say? I don't know. Go ahead. I've completely lost my point.
No, you're good. Um,
Good to see you again, Ty.
Yeah, good to see you too, man.
right now, I'm actually looking up those numbers because I am curious.
I had a really good point on the second part. I just completely forgot
Yep,
it.
how it goes.
Oh, I remember the point. I remember the point.
Go
Oh,
for it.
you had mentioned that something about like respecting people's like decisions of or what they need to fulfill them, right? And
Sure.
that only goes to a certain extent though, right? Like if you want like I get that we shouldn't like restrict people from doing what they want to do with their lives, but if it comes to the point where you're putting other people in danger of
Oh, sure.
fulfilling their lives, that's when I start to draw the
Of
line.
course. And I absolutely agree with you. But I just don't think that this thing about like a higher injury rate m- really is to such a degree that is like something that should be stopped, right? Like if I apply to go to um Harvard, right? And there's all these other people who are applying to get into Harvard, and they can only accept so many, and I happen to be accepted. Should I not be allowed to do that because I crushed another applicant's dreams of getting into Harvard?
No, I see your point with that, right? But like we're not talking about like going to college here, right? We're talking about like you know people putting their lives at stake, right? And
Sure. And again, I just
if
don't think
you
that
get it,
is.
let's take your example of Harvard. If you getting into Harvard were to let's say put somebody else who's getting into Harvard at a more likely risk that they might get kicked out of Harvard, would you say that you still have that same amount of a right to be at Harvard? You see what I'm saying?
Um, like, I really just don't think that, like, okay, to try and be good faith almost, we'll put it that way. Like, are there other things that you think um that having women in the military, like on those frontline positions, um is a negative to other soldiers or even themselves, um on the basis of them being women,
I think
besides
it
the
mainly applies to like
injuries?
I think it mainly applies to like military combat roles and like police. And that's about as far as I take it.
Sure. And so are there other reasons that you have other than the injury rates? Or do you just look at
Uh
that and say,
that's like
well,
the biggest that's
putting
like
the
the most
other.
I would say that's the most credible one. I
Okay.
do have other reasons, but they're a bit more speculative.
Mhm.
So,
Like
Um,
away
I
from
just look at it from also like like an evolutionary aspect, like women. you know, like men evolved to be like, survival, high intensity situations and shit like that. But like, I don't, I wouldn't really present that as my main argument.
Sure. Michael, were you going to say something?
Yeah, even away from the fact of injury rates, is even if you have women that are competing at completing their scores at the same rate physically, they're still their shootings or not their shootings, but their shooting scores are lower than men's anyways, as well as their reaction times. So uh, there's no reason to have women in the military.
Um, Honestly, like, I would say, like, firstly, this is the American military. I want it nice and big and strong. I want as many soldiers as I can, even if they're not all the tip-top shape, right? Like, I think it just has to do with where we draw the line of what's like acceptable standard, right? Like, we could probably look at the strongest like Navy SEAL or Marine that we've ever had in our forces before, and then say, "Yep, this is our standard." You have to physically and mentally equate to the standard that this person set, and if you cannot, you do not go in the military.
Okay, so
But
let's strip it
if we
all the
were to
way
do
down.
that, there would be almost nobody in our military. So we have to set the standard somewhere to the point where we can let enough people in.
I agree with you. I agree with you. We shouldn't have, the Navy SEAL that went through the most intense training in the world be the standard for the military. So let's strip it
Mhm.
all the way down to, the even to the personal level. Um, if you were being robbed on the street and you had your girlfriend with you, are you going to send her to defend you, or are you going to defend her?
Well, it depends. Is my girlfriend Ronda Rousey?
No, your girlfriend's your girlfriend.
Awesome. Then yeah, on that one-on-one, um, I'm probably going after him. I'm not sending my girlfriend,
Why would that
but
be? I thought women could do everything men
because
can do.
because I am physically stronger than my girlfriend. But
Okay, so
I
on
will
average, do
like
you think men are stronger than women then?
on average, but we're not talking about average. We're
No, we're
talking about the
talking.
people who actually get in.
Yeah, that's what you said you wanted to do. You wanted to break it down from the Navy SEAL guy that went through the most rigorous and bring it down to the average. On average,
Well, yeah,
men are stronger than women.
right. So we're going to see more men in the military than women. Of course, we're not going to have 50-50, but that doesn't mean that the women who do get in shouldn't,
Why should they?
because they are as competent. They were able to pass all those same tests.
No, they didn't.
What do you mean?
They had to lower the physical standard for women to enter the military. That's not the same
So
standard.
again, number one, you already brought this up with that other guy who's in here earlier before we started, and he already told you about how those are different things, right? Like, yes, you do have some things in your um initial um like so
Okay,
the
so
requirements
let's say the
for when
smartest guy
you
in the world
enlist.
that could pass every test, but he can't pass the physical test. Are you going to let him in the military?
Probably not to be on the front lines, no.
But why would you let him be in there if he can't even pass the physical test? Like, you realize that even people that aren't on the front line still have to do physical work, right?
Sure, right? But
Okay.
like he has other opportunities, right? Like there's
Well,
there's there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying we should let anybody into the military. There absolutely should be standards, but I don't think that like if there are women that are able to pass those standards, we shouldn't stop them from getting in anyway.
No, if they can pass
uh,
the men's standard, absolutely they can get in.
Yes, and they
uh,
do.
No,
So
they do not.
what you're talking about is to enlist. When
Okay.
you first enlist, you have physical like aptitude tests, right? And those typically um, are lower standards for women just for the sake of enlisting. But once you get into boot camp and there on out, you are doing the same training.
They don't lower it at all at boot camp or through the rest of their physical training. They don't lower it at all.
As far as I'm aware.
Why don't you Google that? Might want to Google
Well,
that.
I do want to play devil's advocate a little bit here because I think there is a good point to be made here that kind of relates to what he was saying. If you want to make the argument that, you know, allowing women in the military would basically be acceptable because, they're putting their, not only are they putting their lives at risk, right, when they sign up, but also you could make the argument, well, then the people around them are that also sign up are assuming that risk when they sign up that possibly somebody else's performance could put them at risk. But the level at risk that we decide is, I think we there needs to be like a distinction. And I think that I think there needs to be more research, you know and like more studies into this. That's all I could say, really. But I think there is an argument to be made if you want to say that they're all assuming the risk equally.
Yeah, if you guys give me just 1 minute, I just got to take a leak really bad.
Nope, you're good.
Okay, I'll
Yeah,
be right
go
back.
ahead. Did you ever find those numbers?
I'm still looking right now. I can't really find anything. Apparently just last month the Pentagon went and did something. Oh no, actually just last month the Pentagon eliminates the lower fitness standards for women in combat roles. So, supposedly there were lower fitness standards, but again, I believe that's not necessarily something once you're actually the um in the military. At that point, you're doing all the same training as everybody else.
I mean, as far as I'm
Like,
aware, there's like definitely different standards that are applied for women and men, that they base off of the biological differences that men and women generally have. But I'm not going to say it's anything like crazy.
hmm I'm just trying to find anything like concrete on this.
So I looked up some stuff about the injury rates. So women experience roughly double the overall injury rate compared to men during basic training,
hmm
with a relative risk of 2.1, under 2.1.
Okay, sorry about that.
Sure. I mean, so like if you want to make like injury rates something that is important for being in the military, then I would say awesome. Make that part of your criteria. Make that a part of your testing for physical aptitude, right? Have them just watching you for a few weeks, see how often you get injured doing whatever, and if you are above a certain rate, you just can't be in the military. That's a part of your testing to be able to enlist.
Okay,
Because
I could agree to that, but I think that that should be standardized regardless of gender.
sure, exactly. That's what I'm saying, right? Because then you just have that equal requirement for
But
them
like,
both,
how could you
and
even
anyone from
quantize
either
that
gender that
though?
is. That's a great question, and I think that goes to the point that, like, it's something that is not taken into account for a reason, because it really just does not have that much of an actual effect practically in the real world. Like, yes, it's in the numbers, that is a thing that happens, but the how much it matters, I question.
So should we let the guy
So
with Parkinson's
because
in and say just watch him and make sure he's okay, or should we say no to the guy with Parkinson's?
again, that's the point, right? Like, the standards that are in place now exist for a reason, and there's no reason that those who aren't at those standards shouldn't be able to get in. And there are things that aren't standards because they don't have that kind of impact. I don't think the difference in injury rate is really having that much of an impact on the performance of our military.
Well, from what I'm reading, it says that minor injuries are more common for women, but serious injuries occur at similar rates. But fatal combat outcomes have been higher for injured women in at least some conflicts. So, I mean, take away what
Again,
you
like
will from
like
that.
that's what I'm saying, right? Like, if this was such a big deal that we needed to keep women out of the force, then you should be telling me that, like, yeah, women are getting killed in the military far more often than men are because they are so puny and frail, right? But you're not telling me that. You're telling me,
Okay, so
well,
let's
they
look
have
at the
small
rate.
injuries a little more often, but they have big injuries at about the same rate, and they
Let's
happen to die sometimes a little more often than men, right?
well,
Like, that's what you're telling me. I don't
let's
think
look at the
that.
numbers. Hold on.
Please.
Yeah,
So
that,
even if what you're like what you're saying doesn't track at all, because you realize there's more men in the military than there are women, so there's going to be less women deaths. Number one, like, I don't understand your point there.
Sure. Well, I'm just
well,
saying, I think the fact that he's not able to tell me that, like, across the board, women are getting hurt in the military and it's affecting operations much more than men. The fact
let's
that
look.
he's not able to tell me that
I'm
outright,
I'm
that
about to
means
tell
it's
you.
not it's not such a big deal that we should bar women entirely
Well,
from being in the military.
you couldn't say across the board, because women are in different roles all over the military. So across the board would mean that every woman in every job is getting injured
Well,
at the
no, well,
same
didn't
rate, but
well,
they're not.
well, yeah, but
Let
didn't you say, even the people who aren't necessarily on the front lines need to also be physically capable?
Yes,
so
Okay, then we have to stop them from being anywhere.
I
so in
agree.
Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan, the female case fatality rate was 39.9% compared to males at 17%. In Operation Iraqi Freedom, the female case of fatality rate was 14%, while the males were 12%. So, I mean, we could look at
Can
a
you say
bunch of
can you say the
different.
first one more time? I'm sorry?
The first one was 35.9% compared to 17% for men.
Mhm. Um, and then you said 14 and 12.
Yeah,
Again,
14
like,
and 12. We can increase the sample size here. Don't get stuck on the
sure,
fact that this is just, the two. Let's do that. In fact, I'll increase the sample size. Let's
please.
look at a more average.
So let me ask you this then: um, were
Mhm.
they wrong for not letting women fight in World War II? Then
Um, I mean, yeah, probably. I would say so.
you think
If there
so?
were women that were able to like, be in general just as physically capable as the men that were there, then yeah, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to fight alongside them.
Okay, so we have all these stories of all these men, World War II. We know, most of their names, the ones that were, high profile and stuff. If there would have
Uh-huh.
been one woman anywhere in America, here in the United States or abroad, we would know who that was. And there isn't. There's not one woman that we know of that changed anything for an outcome of World War II. Who do you think
Sure,
could
so
have?
what?
Who do you think could have?
Well, I'm really trying to understand what you're getting at. Like, can you try and rephrase this a little bit so I can understand a little bit better?
Okay, so the culture back in the 40s,
Hmm.
definitely it was a woman stay home, raise the kids type culture, right?
Sure.
Okay, so do you think those were, I guess, what you would call them today, manly women or womanly women?
Um, they were they were they were probably just based on their environment going to tend towards being much more of that stereotypical more dainty female type.
Hmm.
Sure.
Okay, so with your, even if you were to take your toughest back then of woman, do you think she could have had even half the effect that an average man would have had during World War II?
Sure. And like that's what I'm saying, right? Like I still think it would have been, right, in this hypothetical, you would still have the same standard of what it takes to be able to get into the military, right? We're not just going to send in people who were less physically capable, but if you had hypothetically some even a tiny amount of women that were physically on par with the men that were being drafted even, then why not let them go?
Then where were they?
Well, of course, based upon the culture that had been set up, they were at home. And they were actually, if you, I mean,
And how do you think it
it's
would have turned
honestly
out?
really funny that you go back. Well, it's honestly really funny that you go back to World War II because during World War II, there were um, thousands and thousands of men that were overseas fighting in the war. Um, but the world still had to go on in the United States during that. So, do you know what happened? Women started going into a lot of industrial jobs that men weren't there to work anymore. And they kept the country afloat, um, like very well, and like were left
What
alone
jobs?
essentially while men went to fight.
What jobs did they do?
Um, Again, the majority of men were gone, so women had to fill the role of men in the workforce.
Yeah, the majority of them that did fill those roles, they were assembly line workers. They weren't designing anything, they weren't building anything. They were just producing something that had already been designed and had been built 1,000 times
Sure,
over.
but that's what
They weren't
but
doing
that's what
anything
those men
special.
were doing.
No,
Neither were
no, no.
those men who were doing it before.
The men had invented all that stuff.
I would say with those more intellectual things, right? Like, I don't think men have a monopoly on that at all.
On
Like,
mechanics?
obviously back then when it like you didn't see women in those spaces because they were socially and culturally barred from getting in those kinds of positions. But nowadays, you see all kinds of female CEOs and entrepreneurs and people who, like, intellectually are on par with men. But that was purely a case in World War II and during those times because of the culture, not necessarily because of any concrete difference in the genders.
Yeah. Uh, so, what are, okay, so even if we go off of today, just of the things of today,
Mhm.
what are women inventing? What are women
Um,
designing other
all
than
kinds of things.
interiors?
I, again, there are plenty. I'm sure. Like if I give a quick Google search, um, for Christ's sake, have you ever heard of the name Mary Curie?
Yeah,
Like multiple
yeah.
Nobel awards.
But
Like
I said
we wouldn't have X-rays without her.
I even rephrased it instead of today.
I
What are
mean,
they
sure, but
designing?
like,
What are they inventing? What jobs do women
what are
have
men
today?
inventing today?
Lots of things.
Such as
Everything that's going on in the world. Men have had.
I mean, that's just not the case,
Oh,
right? Like,
who invented night vision? I know you're going to say it was a woman, but it wasn't.
awesome.
What technologically advancing device has a woman created other than Curie in the 20th century?
Um,
That they didn't have to
let's
use.
see. Technology.
How many robotic engineers are women? Like, they're not even doing those jobs.
Wait, but what's your point?
The point is that women can't do the same thing as men, so obviously feminism can't run anything.
That's funny. Wait, but so you're saying that women? I don't understand. So you're saying that women don't invent anything?
For the love of God, a woman invented the electric refrigerator. Something that is like integral to modern first world life.
Okay, I might give you that one. I hadn't looked that one up. Refrigerator.
Or
Um,
we have Mary Van Britten Brown, the creator of the home security system.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well,
okay.
women make up 50% of the population. I'm sure they've created some things. So
Exactly.
that's kind of crazy that we're making this claim.
Um, okay, so if we were to take it, um, never mind. I'll just.
But also, like the point when you were making with feminism, I think feminism is like seeking to address like the inequities of the system, kind of to address what you are saying. Because I think like you would be correct in saying that it's probably disproportional in how many things are invented by men versus how many things are invented by women. But also when we look in history, like men have been the only ones that have had the like consistent privilege of going to school and getting educated in the STEM field and stuff like that. Like it's like a very recent development that women have been started to like be included
Mhm.
in those things. So it's kind of like to point to all these like research, which is vastly impressive, especially since these women are doing these things without like actual like formal educations. Like
What
I
STEM
don't know.
fields do you think they're going into?
Actually, like like recent numbers are very clearly showing like women are outcompeting men in STEM dramatically right now, and it's
I,
actually kind of a big problem.
what are you considering STEM though?
Science,
Science,
technology,
technology,
engineering, and math.
yeah.
Okay, so in with the science, you're including all the stupid liberal
Yep.
stuff of sociology and all that.
Like,
Okay, so that's
No, no, no. Wait,
only
hold on. Hold on.
only the
Sociology is
things that
no,
women
no, no,
can
no.
do.
That's
Like,
that's a
yeah,
liberal arts
you're
degree.
right.
That's not
Women
counted in STEM.
definitely do more thinking than men because
No,
we don't care
that
about our
is a
feelings.
liberal arts degree. That is not STEM.
Yeah,
Try
Michael.
again.
Sociology is liberal arts. That's not STEM.
When we say science, we mean like physics, like the cool
Biology.
shit. Exactly. You're like things like that, right? The things that matter, the smart stuff. Women are doing better in it dramatically than men.
Dramatically.
Yes.
I'd believe that.
Let's just dramatically better. Are women dramatically better So here's, I've never looked this up. So here's from Pew Research. It looks like it is still men that are dominating it.
Sure, but back from what it had been only a
But you just said it was dramatically.
sure. So I was exaggerating.
Wait, are we talking about
Um
the actual makeup of the majors, or are we talking about like how well they do when they take these majors?
I almost guarantee he's looking at the
Wouldn't you have
makeup
to
of
have a
it.
degree to
Oh.
say you are in the STEM field? Or
No, no, no. I'm saying,
you
I'm
just
saying when
anybody
he's
can
saying
be
that,
in the STEM
Sure,
field?
but like
when
it's
he's
it's
saying
the
that
difference.
people.
It's the difference between how many are in STEM and how good are they.
Mhm.
Huh. Okay.
Also, STEM is a crazy broad field. It covers like half of the undergraduate
Sure.
majors possible. So you would have to you kind of have to
Well,
specify a
it's
specific major. For biological sciences, for example, 60% of undergraduates were women
for which field?
for biology. But then you also have like math and statistics. Only 26% were women. So yeah, they're in computer science. 19% were women. So yeah, you still have like disparities in these fields. Um, but yeah, I don't think really the makeup is really all too important. I think it's more about the performance of how they do in the fields.
Also, I found an article from just last year stating that women are quote now women now account for 50.7% of the college educated labor force, having surpassed men.
And are you still
So
staying with STEM?
women are
Or are we
that is
going
not
something?
specifying STEM, but
Okay.
just in general, they are more college educated. There are more
Oh,
college educated women in the workforce than men.
yeah, yeah. Obviously, because how like so there's college, and then there's things called trade schools. Okay, a lot of men go to trade
Sure.
schools. They skip college and go to a trade school in order to provide. They're not going to college. Um, they're trying to provide for either themselves, their family. So,
Awesome. You can do all of that with college as well. Like,
oh, but you got to give up 4 years of your life at least, right?
okay, okay.
Okay, so do you know how on average how long a trade school takes?
Um,
About 9 months.
I mean, between a school and then your apprenticeship and whatnot. I mean,
No, you don't need an apprenticeship
sure.
to like be a diesel mechanic like I did.
almost 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 all traders have some sort of apprenticeship program. But
Yeah, you're right about,
specific
like
aside,
electrical, you're talking about, plumbers,
mhm.
things like that. Yeah, they have an apprenticeship. But even with the apprenticeship, you're still making money.
Awesome. But like all these things happen with college too.
Yeah, after you graduate.
Sure. So what?
Hmm.
You get a return on your investment.
Really. Do you know that after 10 years, less than half the people that have a degree are using their degree?
Yeah, a lot of people get really shitty degrees because a lot of people that go into college are going there because back in shit since the 80s at least the um narrative in our country turned to like college is the thing you have to do after high school. This is how you get educated. This is how you get a job, because that was really the case. But because of that, it became not only easier to get into college, but there were just a much larger amount of people who were going into college, and it became less of a like, oh wow, this looks amazing on a job application, to, well, obviously you have to be college educated, right? So I think, like, again, but it's still absolutely the case that like in those more higher paying fields like STEM, or even like doctors, or like anyone who goes to grad school, right? Like these are things that absolutely make a difference and will make you money in the long run. You just have to invest a little more, and like you're going to end up out earning all of those traders.
You're making my point for me, because of the fact that men aren't, or you're saying that women are doing more in college. Just proves my point, because they're the ones that are going to college, and they're the ones that aren't even using their degrees. Men are going off to trade schools, things like that. So,
Are you
right,
saying people have like gone into trade schools more often as of late?
I would say probably in the last 20 years, more people have been going to trade schools.
I would question that statement. I have no idea if that's the case or not, so I'm not really going to challenge it. But I think that like
Now, I'm not saying
number one,
everybody, but
again, like
mostly men are going
right.
to trade schools.
Sure, and again, like people are gonna want to work in a in a profession that they feel suits them, and on average, women are gonna find themselves more suited in education um, or healthcare, right? But we're also starting to see that they compete just as well in a lot of STEM atmospheres, right? So again, like I don't see how this is a bad thing. I think it only goes to show that women are just as capable as men, and there's no reason to have a society where men have the monopoly on voting or rights or force or anything to that degree. I think
Because women don't have
there is.
force.
Sure, but they have everything else, and I don't think force is what, like, physical force is what determines how our society works anymore. At least it shouldn't.
Okay, so if that's the case, where is the all women military? Which country is funded is all women?
Again, because there hasn't been a like fully new, and also like no, that's such a dumb point to begin with. Like that's not gonna happen. Again, there no one is arguing for an all woman military, right? It's not going to happen. It probably shouldn't happen.
Well, why
Um,
not if they're just as
but
capable?
Wait, hold on. So, what point does that serve to emphasize, though? Because what I've been hearing Trashy, the guy with the Charlie Kirk profile, he was saying that STEM field. So obviously, and then we all agreed that men make up the vast majority of trade schools because um, they're going to go into professions that more suit how they feel like, I don't know, more comfortable. But I don't think anyone's been arguing that like women are just as strong as men, that they can like
exactly.
participate in the military just as well. I think we're talking like, especially when we're making this distinction between like STEM fields and like hard labor. Like this is why we have such a disparity between uh, women and men in trade fields, because it's like trade fields are generally more laborious.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to the idea of like there's a different definition of force today than what has been for the majority of human history, right?
No, it's
Like
the
the
exact same
definition
meaning.
of right, but it doesn't, but in the context of how the world works, it doesn't work the same way anymore, right?
Yes, it
It's
does.
not the same thing. Like again, we can go back to the point that um a good military is no longer dependent on who has the biggest, strongest men in their ranks, right? It a lot of it has to do with how better am I at strategizing than my opponent, right? So it's not really that physical force that really decides these kinds of things anymore. And therefore, men don't have that monopoly on that force.
Yeah, we still do, because of the fact that if you we don't even have to talk about the military at this point now, because of that right there. If you need to enforce anything needs to be enforced, you have to appeal to men, whether you're a woman or a man. You have to appeal to other men
Okay.
to
So
enforce every single law.
okay, so men
What?
basically allow, like, women only have the rights that they do because men allow it to be so. Correct? Because they have that monopoly on force.
I don't. We don't even want to get into rights. But
Well, like hypothetically, because women could never overpower men, right? If all men got together and said, "We want to strip women of their rights," they could hypothetically do that,
yeah,
right? Okay.
could a woman do? Could
So
women do that in reverse?
probably not. No,
Okay,
probably
then
not.
men have the dominance
Maybe
on
like
force.
on okay. So like I want to know how far that goes, right? How far does that logic go? Let's say you have a married couple, right? I assume you're married.
Yeah, that's not
Awesome.
that's not my wife. That's
Um
my grandma.
but so as a married man, if you in that relationship, you have the monopoly on force, right?
Right.
What is stopping you from treating your wife however which way you see fit, right?
Because
Or
I
any
have a
husband in
religion
life.
that I fall back on. That's where I get my epistemology. That's where I get my all
Awesome,
my
awesome.
beliefs. So I wouldn't do that to my
Let's talk
wife
about just
because
just someone who doesn't have any of that, right? Just your plain average guy, right? He doesn't have anything like that, right?
Mhm.
But he understands that as a man, he controls the relationship because he has the physical force behind it.
Mhm.
Is he in the right by that to take control of that relationship however he sees fit
No, because
and
then the
can
woman
strip
can
her of
come
her
and
individual rights?
no, she can come and plead to other men her case, and then other men can go and take care of her man.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like this entire idea of force doctrine relies on the assumption that all men are in agreement with one another because of it, right?
No, no,
Like
it doesn't.
even if you have like like this idea can't exist in the real world, and we shouldn't analyze the world based upon it because it could never actually um be enacted in any material way, because there is never going to be a complete coalition of men that say women no more, right? Like there will always be
Well, no,
a
because there'd be
fighting
other
for
men would stop them.
right, but that's the thing, right? They're going to be stopped. This entire idea of a force doctrine where this is a lens that we should view the world from, it's pointless because it will never actually have a real world effect.
No, it has an effect even right now today.
Such as
If something happens, you call 911. 911 send people, and 911 is full of men.
Okay, but Michael, why do we have female police officers?
Yeah, you can't point to the outlier for the exception.
I don't think that's an outlier. What? How many?
Yeah,
What percent?
how many women are in the police force versus men?
Probably a
Yeah,
lot.
probably less than 25%, when you say.
Probably,
Wait, say it one more time.
even I will even grant to you that there's obviously going to be a there's going to be a less number of women in the police force than men. But does that mean that when I call 911 and a female officer shows up at my door, I'm going to say, "No, no, I'll wait for the men to show up to help me." No, I'm
No,
not going to
because
do that.
usually the male officer is usually either 30 seconds, a minute behind the female officer whenever they're reporting to any kind of violent act.
No, Michael. So this isn't. This is okay. Let's say you're like in a small town, and like the
Yeah, I
only
live in a small
deputy
town.
sheriff around is like a female deputy sheriff, and like you have an incident where someone's like attacking you, and like, or maybe like a gang of people are attacking you.
Here,
and you
let's
can't
let's
fight
use
back.
an even better example. My son attacked my wife a couple of years ago. I
Oh, there
called the
you go.
police, and guess what? A woman showed up. 30 seconds later, a male showed up. They
Okay,
don't
wait, but
send.
hold on.
Go ahead.
But no, hold on. Because I know how they send police officers. It's dispatch. They don't dispatch people based off gender. They dispatch officers. They're all officers. They all have the same equipment and the same training, so they're all equipped to deal with the same situation. So this idea that like when they dispatch a female officer, a male officer is like a minute behind. Like
No.
that might have been what happened in your case, but
Yeah,
that's
no,
not how
no.
that's not intentionally how they dispatch people. They don't dispatch people by gender.
No,
That's
I
not
wasn't
how it
saying
works.
I wasn't saying that it was because she was a woman. They sent no, it was because they sent two officers. One was a female, one was a male. And guess what? My son wasn't afraid of the female.
Okay, but Mike. Okay, okay. Let's put this example first. So your son attacked your wife, and then the female deputy shows up, and I don't know. Let's say like your son is continuing to attack your wife. The female deputy, she might not be able to wrestle your son. I don't know how big your son is and how big this deputy is. Like it would obviously depend. But the female deputy is provided tools, and the proper training to take care of situations like that, where she can handle suspects that are probably larger than her. For example, she's given a taser. So if she needed to, and your son was still attacking your wife, she could probably tase your son. If she couldn't tase your son and it didn't work for some reason, she has pepper spray. She could pepper spray your son. That wouldn't take much force from her. That wouldn't take any force from her, actually. And if the pepper spray still didn't work, she would probably shoot your son. She'd probably kill him. But that's okay because we provided female officers those tools, and we've said that you're equipped and you're capable of doing these jobs. They're not like any less of an officer. Do you understand what I'm saying?
We can send a big ass man to intimidate him.
Sure,
Well,
but
you could,
don't
but
always have that. That's
Exactly.
the point.
No,
right?
that
It
is
goes
the
back to
point.
those-
Is it
to
should
those,
be that.
like standards, right? But that's not always available. Just practically, right? You can't set the standard for an officer or someone in the military at too high of a standard, or else you just won't have enough people. So you have to have it low enough that you actually have the people available.
Yeah, and that's
Yep.
why they have
Well-
a standard, and men have to pass it. But then they said, "Oh, we want women," so they lowered the standard so that women could pass the physical training part. They don't have to do the same amount of physical work, and they still get in.
But you expect them to do the same amount of physical work?
If you want
Because
that job, you better do the exact same job.
That doesn't make sense to me though, because we're not seeing like in any like, I don't know, like maybe this is because I understand this is from your perspective, so this is obviously like one circumstance that is kind of building your whole worldview on top of this. But do you think that there really is any meaningful like difference in how a female deputy does her job and how a male deputy does his job?
Even if they did the exact same thing the exact same way, there is a difference in physical ability. Okay, so even if the woman can do the exact same physical ability, okay, there's two other things that you have to figure out. You have to figure out a weapon system. You have to be able to take it apart, dismantle it, put it back together, and use it correctly. Okay.
Yep,
On average,
no, hold on. Let's stop there, because every female deputy that is on the road right now can do that. Let me tell you that, because there is no female deputy that has been put onto the roads that hasn't been trained with their gun.
And what is their shooting percentage versus a man's?
It would probably be the same.
No, it's much lower.
Okay, well, actually, let's look at that, because that wouldn't make any sense to me. Because shooting isn't really a physical thing, is it?
No, it is.
Not
Have you
really.
ever shot a gun?
I've shot a gun before, yeah.
Okay, do you know this thing called recoil?
Yeah, but they're shooting like
if you
they're
can't
shooting Glock 19s. The recoil isn't the same as a World War I musket. We're not talking about the same things here. Women can still shoot Glock 19s. There are plenty of women. There are thousands of women in the United States that are equipped with guns every day.
I'm not
And
saying
they
they're
know
not.
how to use them, and they're perfectly fine with using them. I'm sure plenty of women can use guns perfectly fine.
Sure, they might know how to use them. Do they use them effectively and to the same as a man? Or would I rather have a man that I don't have to worry about that if he shoots at something he's going to miss?
Well, that's a worry you have to worry about with everything, because humans make mistakes, even men. But hold on, because I'm interested in this. I want to see what's the difference between qualifications for male and female.
I got to go here in about 10 minutes. I got to put my son
I'll
to
make
bed.
it quick. Don't worry, I'll make it quick.
No worries. I've just been here for a little while. My son's been begging me to play with him. Just so you guys know, I don't hold any hard feelings when I debate. So even if I got angry at one point or anything, I just love debating. So I'm going to school to be a lawyer.
Man, it's been a great time. Hey, right there with you.
Right on.
Fuck, okay. I'm reading the study. It's just an abstract, though. I can't even find the actual study. This is gonna piss me off.
Okay, honestly, like, from everything that I'm reading, like, the things you're saying are checking out. And I still just don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? I think it again comes back to the fact that, like, your standards can't be for perfection. And that you have to have your standards low enough to the point where you're actually going to have a sustainable amount of people on the force, right? So while not every officer, male or female, even if female more often, is going to be a perfect shot, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be there anyways.
Wait, whoa. Where did you stand on the shoot, I can't think of his name. Never mind, forget it. I can't remember the guy's name.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
No, sure. How did you stand on that?
Oh yeah, I thought he was in the right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, great guy.
Okay, so this is what I found. There was here, I'll send you both studies. They're both abstracts. They're not actual studies. But the first one, it kind of says, it says women are worse at shooting than men. And then the second one kind of goes into detail. It says some reasons that men might be better at shooting. Hold on, I'm kind of paraphrasing here. Is because they come from generally they come from corrections or other law enforcement or military backgrounds in which they have experience with firearms already. Generally, that's not true for females. But yeah, again, there is like a biological component where females have lower grip strength.
Yeah, that's what I found is that grip strength seems to be the biggest like identifier.
And
But
what would be
even
the one thing that would affect that? Would that be the recoil?
Sure.
yeah,
Okay.
but even in the study, it says that. Let me find it. Results show that by the end of basic firearms training, female police recruits had overcome their lack of training and familiarity with handguns. The firearms training significantly improved the marksmanship of both female and male recruits. Women's marksmanship marksmanship scores remained slightly but significantly lower than men's scores. This small difference in marksmanship appeared to be due to women's lower grip strength. Recommendations include issuing female police officers with weapons that is suited for their grip strength and hand size, and increased grip strength training. So it sounds like it's not like this is a lost cause. Female
Yeah.
officers still have the ability to improve, and it sounds like they are improving with basic training, which they do receive at police academy. It sounds like, I mean, realistically, we're talking about female police officers, which are a fairly new addition to the police department. When we're talking like 2 decades ago, you'd be pretty hard pressed to find a female police officer. So we're still finding out studies and like new information about this stuff, but I don't think it's like, I don't think it's like, okay, we can't have any female police officers, because that would also like,
But if all the
that would just
studies are
ignore the fact.
showing that women are lacking, why would we keep wanting to put them and push them places that they shouldn't go?
Well, okay, that's a good question. So yeah, obviously they are showing that women's firearm scores are like their marksmanship scores are less than men, and I guess I mean we would expect that. Thinking about it in hindsight, but that would also ignore the benefits of having women as police officers. Like I think one of the main reasons that police officers or police departments like first started this push to get women into policing was because like women generally have more positive impacts on like domestic violence victims and stuff like that, and they can do better community outreach and stuff like this. Like women do have strengths that men don't have, and men have strengths that women don't have, and you kind of have to like, it's kind of a thing of diversity. Like you have to have both in the police department to leverage both of those things.
Yeah, I hear you. But I just don't agree. But anyway, we probably won't agree on that, which is fine. I mean, people are allowed to have disagreements, and that's why we do things like this. And you know, it's not usually always just to change people's mind; it's to give information as well. So, but I've had a good time. I appreciate
Agreed.
the debate.
This
Both
was
of you,
fun.
I'd be more than willing to have another debate with you guys in the future.
Absolutely.
So, but I got to get out of here. My kid's begging me.
Hmm.
So I apologize. And
No,
next
not a
time
problem.
I'll try and schedule a little bit extra time.
For sure. And hey, are you going to be uploading this video at all?
Yeah, I'll be putting it up on my YouTube. I can send you a copy of it as well if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Like send me the link to the YouTube video or what have you, because that'd be great.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too, man.
All right. Bye.